The disappearance salient, and Jace Weller leaned forward in his pilot's seat as the radar pinged again. And again, the signal was faint, almost broken, but it was real. Deep in the neutral zone where no one was supposed to be, a distress beacon had lit up his panel like a ghost signal from a graveyard. The transmission flickered onto the screen, showing a young alien girl with silver skin and glowing eyes. Her face was filled with fear. Behind her were shadowy figures, shouting in a language the system couldn't translate. Then static, then silence. Jay stared at the screen, his fingers tightening around the console. He recognized her, not personally, but by reputation. Her name was Solari, daughter of a high counselor from the planet Valari Prime. She had visited Earth 2 years ago during peace talks, and had smiled at human children like they were her own. The command center buzzed into his headset. "Do not pursue, Lieutenant." The signal originated outside allowed patrol zones. "This is a diplomatic matter." But Jace didn't answer right away. Something in his gut twisted, a deep, instinctive warning. The kind soldiers don't ignore. The kind that told him this wasn't politics, this was something worse. He shut down the alert and rerouted power to his stealth systems. The stars outside his window seemed to grow darker as his ship slipped into forbidden space, beyond the border where even beacons feared to go. He entered a dead region full of wreckage and silence. Broken satellites, burnt hulls, shattered cargo ships, all the bones of battles no one ever admitted happened here. The laws of war and peace had no weight, only survival did. Using an old mining route stored in Black Ops files, he navigated around pirate fields and rogue asteroid bands. The closer he got, the colder it felt. Even inside his heated suit, like the air itself warned him to turn back. But he didn't. Not when a girl was out there. Scared and alone, hours passed, and then he saw it, a massive carrier ship, broken in half, floating like a dead animal in space. Scorch marks painted its side, and the symbol of a resistance faction flashed weakly on the outer hull. Jace docked at the ruined edge and climbed inside with his weapon drawn. No heat signatures, no life signs. Only the smell of burned circuitry and melted steel. But deep inside, he found something, a memory shard still glowing weakly in the corner of the brig. He scanned it, and it played a short clip. Solari in chains, guarded by masked soldiers. One of them speaking in a broken voice. "The deal is made. She's not going back. Her power belongs to the cause now." Then the recording shut down. Jace stood frozen, realizing this wasn't just a kidnapping. This was a theft of something bigger, something dangerous. He grabbed the shard and returned to his ship, linking the data to navigation scans. Energy trails led from the broken carrier toward a blacklisted system known for criminal outposts and hidden deals. He was about to jump when a warning flashed across his screen: military recall order. Cease unauthorized mission or face court-martial. But Jace shut it off without reading the rest. He looked at the empty co-pilot's seat and spoke softly. "Hang on, Solari, I'm coming." He hit the thrusters, and his ship vanished into the star-specked shadows. But what he didn't know was that eyes were already watching him from the dark. Eyes that had been waiting for a human to cross the line. Waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to try. Because Solari wasn't just a kidnapped alien girl. She was the key to something far older than war, and her rescue would set off a chain reaction no one could stop. The forbidden rescue. Jace flew into the shadows of a cursed system called Brelan's Rift, a place where no official maps reached and no patrols ever returned. The stars here looked dim, like they were watching from behind a veil, silent and cold. His ship's hull creaked under the strange gravity fields as he slowed to avoid detection. Up ahead, wrapped in clouds of static and debris, was the outpost Krell Station, a known ghost port where smugglers, mercenaries, and war criminals came to trade secrets and flesh. He disguised his vessel with heat dampeners and landed it beneath the outpost's lowest hangar. His boots hit the metal floor with a soft thud. The air smelled of rust, oil, and blood. No questions were asked here, and no help came if you screamed. Wearing a worn mercenary disguise, Jace slipped through the market levels. Weapons lined the walls, alien prisoners sat in cages, and strange music echoed from behind steel doors. But his eyes searched for something else, a sign, a clue, anything. Then he saw it, a masked figure speaking urgently with a known flesh. "Dealer," the same mask from the memory shard. Jace followed, staying in the shadows, his hand never far from the grip of his sidearm. The masked man entered a locked chamber guarded by armed thugs. The door closed, but Jace moved to the side vents, crawling through hot pipes and wiring until he reached a narrow viewing slit. Inside, Solari was there, her hands bound in energy cuffs, her eyes calm but sharp. She was watching the masked man argue with another figure, a buyer, cloaked in golden robes and scales. "She's not a thing you can sell," the buyer hissed. "She carries the spark of the first bond. Her kind thought it dead, but she carries it." Jace frowned, not understanding. But he saw something else, the fear in the masked man's eyes, not of the buyer, but of Solari. That was when he made his move. He dropped from the vents, rolled behind a crate, and fired. A pulse shot at the power supply, lights flickered. Alarms stayed silent. His EMP charge had done its job. He moved like a ghost, disabling the guards with shock knives before they could cry out. The buyer screamed and vanished in a flash of teleportation, but Jace didn't care. He sprinted to Solari and broke her cuffs with a portable nullifier. She blinked, stunned, but recognition lit her eyes. "You came," she whispered, her voice trembling like a falling leaf. "I said I would," Jace replied, pulling her behind him as more guards rushed in from the back hall. They ran through the maze of corridors, weaving past fire lines and storage crates. Jace used smoke bombs to block the way. Solari moved fast despite her weakness, her fingers glowing with a strange energy as she guided him toward a hidden exit hatch. "I remember this place," she said. "They brought me through here first." Jace hacked the hatch lock while Solari covered him. One guard got close, but she raised her hand and a burst of violet light threw him across the wall. Jace stared at her. "What was that?" he asked. She looked away. "I don't know. It only happens near you." Before he could ask more, the hatch opened and they dropped into an old cargo chute, sliding down into the hangar where his ship waited in silent readiness. Jace lifted Solari onto the ramp and fired back at the chasing guards, then jumped in and sealed the hatch behind him. The ship roared to life, engines flaring as it lifted off and tore into the dark sky above Krell Station. But the battle wasn't over yet. Enemy fighters launched from the station's upper docks, chasing his ship with red trails of fire. Jace gritted his teeth and swerved through asteroid fragments, pushing the old thrusters to the limit. "Hold on," he shouted, as the ship spun through debris fields and blinking mines. Solari closed her eyes and held onto him, her touch warm and strange, like sunlight where there should be none. A missile locked onto them, warning alarms screamed. Jace prepared to dive and then the missile stopped, its system shorted midair, falling away like a dead bird. Jace turned to her, wide-eyed. "Did you?" She nodded, quietly. "I didn't mean to, but I think I did." They escaped the rift, leaving behind fire and silence, but both knew this was just the beginning, because now, the ones who wanted her would come with greater force, and whatever power Solari had, she was only starting to awaken. Hunted across starched stars outside, the cockpit window blurred as Jace punched the hyperdrive. The ship groaned under pressure, engine coils burning hot from the narrow escape. Behind them, Krell Station vanished into the void like a memory, best forgotten. But silence didn't mean safety. Solari sat beside him, her body still weak, her silver skin pale, but her eyes watched everything, alert, searching, like she expected something worse to arrive at any moment. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked softly. Jace nodded without looking at her. "Yeah, like we're being followed." He opened the scanners, and sure enough, something was trailing them. A faint shadow skipping through space, keeping distance, but never falling behind. Stealth-class ship, no identification, military grade. He swore under his breath and switched routes, taking the ship into a dense asteroid belt, hoping to lose the tail. Sharp turns and narrow gaps slammed the ship side to side. The shields flared and sparked. Solari grabbed the seat tightly, but said nothing. After an hour of maneuvering, Jace finally cut the engines and drifted into the dark side of a frozen moon, hiding the ship inside a crater with magnetic distortion fields. Only then did he allow himself to breathe. They sat in silence for a long time. Listening to the hum of the cooling systems, Jace watched the scanner, but the tail had vanished. For now, Solari broke the silence. They won't stop, you know. Not until I'm taken back or destroyed. Why you? Jace asked. What makes you so important to them? She looked down at her hands, fingers glowing faintly again. Because I carry something they fear. She stood and walked toward the back of the ship, motioning for him to follow, in the medical bay. She sat on the floor and held out her wrist. Markings glowed faintly beneath her skin symbols that moved and twisted like they were alive. This appeared after I touched the core stone of Valari during the bonding ceremony. It was never meant to activate, she whispered. It's an ancient power Valari's first form of connection, called the Prime Link. A bond beyond blood, beyond species. It doesn't choose randomly. Jace stared at the markings. You think it bonded to you? Solari shook her head slowly, not just to me, to us. He stepped back, confused. Wait, what? She looked up at him, eyes glowing softly now. The spark chose you when you rescued me. When you risked everything, that moment sealed it. Jace couldn't speak. Part of him wanted to reject it, say it was nonsense. But the thing she did, the energy burst, the disabled missile, the link between their thoughts when they escaped, it wasn't normal. And deep down, he felt something too, a quiet pull in his chest every time she was near, before he could respond. The ship's emergency alarms exploded in red light. Proximity. Alert, incoming vessel at high velocity. No signal, no warning, they found us. Jace said through gritted teeth, rushing to the pilot's seat, outside. A black ship appeared from behind the frozen moon, its design smooth and silent, cloaked in dark metal, a hunter vessel from the Shadow Directive, the most secretive unit in the galaxy. Can we run? Solari asked, gripping the rail. No, Jace said. We fight or crash. The enemy ship opened fire. Blue beams slicing through the crater wall. Jace pulled up hard, launching the ship into the open void. Rocks exploded behind them, fire and ice mixing in the dark. Jace fired back, managing to graze the enemy's wing, but the hunter returned with precision shots. Damaging the rear thrusters, the ship spun and lost control. Alarms screamed again. We're going down, he shouted. Hold on, the ship crashed through the atmosphere of a small moon, tumbling through clouds. Heat engulfed the cockpit as systems failed. Metal tore apart as it slammed into a snowy cliffside. Everything went black for a moment. When Jace opened his eyes, the ship was split open. Snow blowing in, the cold biting into his skin. Blood ran down his forehead, but he was alive. Solari, he called out weakly. She crawled toward him from the wreckage, her skin glowing faintly. Not from energy but from the cold. She was freezing fast. He pulled her close and dragged her into the last working cabin, sealing it shut with emergency. Foam inside. Heat flickered from the backup cells. Stay awake, he said, holding her close. Don't sleep. She looked up at him, eyes dim. Jace, if I die, the bond will vanish. You're not dying, he growled, wrapping her in every scrap of thermal cloth he had. You're going to live, and we're going to survive this. But as the wind howled outside and the scanner went dark, both of them knew this was no longer just a rescue mission. This was war, and they were the only two who could change how it ended. The bond deepens. Snow piled higher outside the broken ship, burying the wreck like a forgotten relic. Inside the last working cabin, warmth flickered from a backup cell, barely enough to fight the biting cold. Jace sat on the floor with Solari, wrapped in his arms. Her skin had gone pale blue, her breathing shallow. But she was alive, barely. He had kept her awake through the night, whispering stories from Earth, telling jokes that made no sense in her language, but made her smile anyway. When she finally opened her eyes in the morning glow, something in them had changed. She was different, not just physically, but deeper. Like part of her had crossed some invisible line. You stayed with me, she said softly, her voice hoarse from cold. Of course I did, Jace replied, brushing melting snow off her shoulder. You think I'd let you freeze after all this? She smiled, weak but genuine, and sat up slowly, placing her hand against his chest. Then the bond is sealed. He blinked, unsure. What does that mean, really? Solari closed her eyes and breathed slowly. Valari bonds are ancient, older than our science, older than war. They were never meant to be used again. But the core chose us, and now we are connected. Jace didn't understand all of it, but when she placed her fingers on his skin, he felt something like a wave passing through his heart, warm, deep, and real. Memories that weren't his flickered in his mind, flashes of Solari's childhood. Her training, the moment she was taken, the fear she buried behind her strength. He gasped and pulled back. Was that your memory? Yes, she said, and now you can share mine. As I can feel yours. He stood up, pacing, struggling to make sense of it. So we're, what, so linked now? She looked at him with calm eyes, something like that. He rubbed his face, trying to shake the strange fog in his thoughts, but even now, he could feel her emotions like whispers at the edge of his mind. Tiredness, calm, fear, warmth. This is insane, he muttered, but also kind of amazing. She stood shakily, and he caught her before she fell. You're still weak, he said. I'm healing faster now, she answered, because of the bond. Outside, the storm eased. The wind softened, and distant lights shimmered across the sky. Tiny ships blinking far above the clouds. Maybe scouts, maybe hunters. We need to move before they find us, Jace said, scanning the frozen landscape. The wreck's beacon might still be active. Solari nodded and stepped out of the cabin, the snow crunching beneath her feet, her strength slowly returning. But as they began to move, she reached out and touched a tree branch. It bloomed with frost flowers in seconds. Jace froze, watching the impossible unfold. Did you do that? I didn't mean to, she whispered. It's the bond. It's changing me. The power was growing, and it scared her, not because it hurt but because it felt natural. They found shelter in a cave half a mile away, where ancient stone carvings lined the walls. Valari script etched into rock by old travelers. Solari read it quietly, then turned to Jace. This place is sacred, she said. A sanctuary from war. Few remember it now, but it accepts us. The moment they entered, the temperature shifted. Warmth filled the space. Lights from the crystals in the walls began to pulse gently, as if greeting her return. Jace sat near the entrance, watching the sky turn darker. They're not far. They'll come here eventually. Solari sat beside him, then leaned her head on his shoulder. Then let them come. I'm not afraid anymore. Jace looked at her and spoke carefully. Are you saying this bond is more than just survival? She smiled, a soft smile full of meaning. I think it was never about survival. It was about finding what was lost. He didn't answer, but he reached for her hand and held it tightly, her fingers glowing where they touched his skin. In that moment, surrounded by alien light and silence, they weren't soldier and alien anymore. They were something else, and they both knew what was awakening inside her wasn't just power. It was purpose, and he would stand by her through whatever came next. Hidden truths. The cave hummed with ancient energy. Soft lights pulsed from crystal veins in the walls, and silence wrapped around them like a warm blanket. But Jace couldn't sleep. His mind wouldn't let him. Solari rested near him, eyes closed, her breathing steady. But even in sleep, her fingers glowed. Tiny sparks danced over her skin, like her power refused to rest, like it was trying to speak. Jace stared at her and thought about everything that had happened. Krell Station, the bond, the powers, the crash, and now this strange, sacred place that responded to her presence. He needed answers, not guesses, not feelings, truth. So when the sun rose behind the icy cliffs, Jace activated his portable comm link. It was old, illegal, and slow, but it could reach one person who owed him a favor. The screen flickered. Then a face appeared. Talia Crane, a rogue hacker and former intelligence officer. Her voice came, sharp and suspicious. Weller, you're not dead yet. Not yet, he said. I need you to run a scan. Biometric and historical profile. Who's the target? She asked. Jace hesitated, then turned the camera toward Solari, sleeping peacefully. Talia's eyes widened. Is that? Yes, he said. Her name is Solari. I think she's more important than I was told. Talia was silent for a moment. Then she typed quickly, sending micropulse scan now. Hold her hand near the lens. He gently lifted Solari's hand, holding it near the scanner. Her eyes fluttered open, confused but calm. What is this? She whispered. Something I should have done earlier. He replied. Within seconds, the screen glowed red, and a warning flashed. High security clearance required. Subject classified level Primaris then. A symbol appeared, an old one. Jace had only seen once, carved into the wall of a destroyed embassy. She's royalty. Talia said slowly, her voice flat, not just royal blood, Weller. She's the direct heir to the Valari High Seat. Jace sat back in shock. You're telling me I rescued the future queen? No, Talia said, her voice lowering. You bonded with her. And now you're tied to the royal bloodline, whether you like it or not. Solari looked down at her glowing hands, silent, then whispered, that's why they took me, not for ransom, not for war, but to erase me. Jace stood up, pacing the cave. But why? What do they gain? Talia answered without pause. The Valari High Council is divided. Old factions want war. They think peace with humans weakens their empire. Solari believed in unity, so they removed her. Jace turned to Solari. Is that true? She nodded, eyes heavy with sadness. I tried to stop the war. I stood with human leaders and spoke of peace. They called me naive. Some called me a traitor. Talia added one last thing. You're not safe anymore. Both your names are on kill lists, and not just from pirates. Governments will want you gone. The call ended, leaving silence thicker than before. Solari stood slowly, walking toward the glowing wall. Placing her palm against the stone, the cave responded, symbols lighting up beneath her hand, and a secret doorway opened, revealing a hidden chamber filled with artifacts, scrolls, and a device that pulsed with pure light. This was my mother's sanctuary. She said she was the last ruler, who held the bonded throne, the last to believe power should be shared, not controlled. Jace stepped beside her, staring at the glowing object. What is that? It's called the Heart of Valari, she said. It responds only to those who carry the spark. The moment she touched it, the light exploded across the cave, and Jace fell to his knees, his heart thudding hard, his mind filling with visions, galaxies, wars, ancient peace pacts, and a shadow rising again. When it faded, he gasped for air, and Solari knelt beside him. Now you've seen it, she whispered, the truth I carry. I saw everything, he said, eyes wide. They'll come. For you, they'll destroy everything to stop this. She touched his chest, her voice firm. Then we stopped them first, outside. The scanners beeped faintly. 3 ships had entered orbit above the moon. Hunters were coming. But this time, they wouldn't be chasing a frightened girl and a rogue pilot. They'd be facing something far stronger, a bond forged by fate, and a truth too powerful to bury. Again, the final assault. Cave trembled as the first hunter ship entered the upper atmosphere. Frost fell from the ceiling, dust filled the air, and Jace's pulse pounded like war drums in his chest. Solari stood at the center of the ancient chamber, her hands glowing brighter than ever before. The heart of Valari floated above her palms, spinning slowly, pulsing with alien light, her voice calm but sharp. They're here. Jace loaded his rifle and checked the charge pack. 3 ships, all heavy class. To drop shuttles already landing near the ridge. They're not scouting, they're attacking. She turned to him, her expression no longer afraid. Then we ended here. He raised an eyebrow. We? Solari stepped forward, the glow from the heart flowing into her skin. Her silver hair lifted in waves, her eyes burning like starlight. You're not fighting alone anymore. Outside the cave, snow began to melt in a wide circle. The ancient stones beneath it shimmered, revealing symbols and paths that had not been seen in centuries. They'll come through the upper pass, Jace said. We can trap them there, but we'll need help. Solari nodded and placed her hands on the crystal walls. A deep hum echoed outward, rising through the mountains, and then it happened. Old stone statues scattered across the valley blinked awake, their eyes glowing. Machines of Valari's past, guardians built from rock and light. Jace stepped back, stunned. You just activated an army, not an army, she said. A memory of one. As the enemy drop ships descended, the guardians began to move, rising from their frozen tombs with slow, powerful steps. Jace watched one lift a boulder the size of a truck and hurl it into the sky, smashing a landing shuttle midair. The battlefield was set. Jace led the ground defense, using the terrain to lay traps and explosives. He moved with speed, firing bursts of plasma at incoming mercenaries. shouting commands to the Guardians as if they were soldiers under his command. Solari moved like a force of nature, her hands cutting through the air, sending waves of energy that disarmed attackers without killing them, the power of the bond flowing through her like it had been waiting for this moment. But then came the commander. A tall figure stepped off the lead ship, cloaked in black, face hidden behind a gold mask, energy rippling around him like fire. His voice echoed across the battlefield, "Return the girl, or I'll burn this moon." To Ash, Solari stepped forward alone, her voice unwavering, "I am not returning to chains." He raised a weapon charged with a antimatter pulse, firing a blast meant to tear through force fields. But the shot stopped mid-air, frozen in time, then dissolved. Jace blinked, stunned. "What did you do?" Solari whispered, "I didn't stop it. The bond did." The commander growled and charged. But before he reached them, the ground cracked open, and the heart of Valari rose behind Solari. Fully awakened, bathing the field in light, Jace felt it like thunder in his bones, something ancient, something final. Solari lifted her hand, and the commander froze in place, unable to move, his mask shattered, revealing a face twisted with fear. "You were never meant to lead," she said. "You were meant to protect, and you failed." With a wave of her hand, the man vanished into a burst of blue dust, scattered across the wind. The hunters fled. Those who remained dropped their weapons and fell to their knees, stunned by what they had seen. The snow stopped falling. The battle was over. Jace lowered his weapon and walked to Solari, his voice quiet. "You didn't just fight them. You changed everything." She looked at him, her strength dimming slightly as the heart faded behind her. "We did." He held her steady as she leaned on him, exhausted but alive. "What happens now?" he asked. She looked toward the stars. "Now we go where they can't follow, and we build something new." But both of them knew this wasn't truly the end. This was the moment the galaxy would remember, when a human and a lost princess turned fugitives into legends. What he got in return war never came, not in the way the stars had feared. After the final assault on the frozen moon, something changed in the galaxy. Word of what happened spread in silence, through secret channels and whispered messages. They called it the Light Rebellion, others called it the day the bond returned. But no one called it a lie. Jace and Solari disappeared from public records, their names erased from military rosters, diplomatic files, and bounty lists. Some claimed they died in the crash. Others said they became ghosts that haunted those who chased power. But the truth was far stranger. They had found a place, an old relay station, floating beyond the rim of the known systems, surrounded by gas clouds and forgotten wrecks, hidden from all scanners, a relic from a time before maps. There, they built a new beginning. The station was quiet, broken in some places, but alive with power. And more importantly, hidden. They repaired it together, bit by bit, until it became a sanctuary not just for them but for others, runaways, outcasts, defectors. And even ex-enemies found their way to the station, drawn by whispers of peace, of safety, of something new. Solari welcomed them with calm, and Jace trained them with fire. They called the place Haven Arc. One day, while checking an energy conduit, Jace found an old service panel glowing. Messages were stored there, left behind by a Valari historian, encrypted and sealed. When he played them, Solari stood beside him, silent as a tomb. The recordings spoke of the Prime linked, the first bond between human and Valari thousands of years ago, a time forgotten by both races, buried by fear and pride, but never truly lost. "This isn't new," Jace said quietly. "What we have, it's ancient." Solari nodded, her voice soft. "We just remembered it over time." The bond between them grew beyond power or duty. It became something sacred, something no one could measure. Not even the heart of Valari itself. They shared thoughts without words, dreams without sleep, pain without bleeding. When Solari cried, Jace felt his chest burn. When Jace laughed, she glowed brighter. But it wasn't only about them anymore. A child was born 2 years after they vanished, not fully human, not fully Valari, but something. Both. Her skin shimmered with silver and bronze. Her eyes changed colors when she dreamed. They named her Ellen. Jace held her in his arms for the first time and said nothing, because words would never be enough. Solari sat beside him, smiling like the stars were finally at peace. this," she whispered, "is what they feared." Jace kissed her forehead. "And what I never expected to find. Peace never lasted forever, not in the galaxy they knew. But something else did. Legacy." Ellen grew, and with her, so did Haven Arc. The old station became a beacon for those seeking purpose beyond orders, beyond flags, beyond species, and every cycle, under the violet sky of their hidden world. Jace stood with Solari and watched new ships arrive, new voices echo through the metal halls, new bonds form in silence. He had gone into forbidden space to save a kidnapped alien girl. What he got in return was not just love, or power, or war. He got a future, he got a home, and in a galaxy built on fear. He helped build something that could not be broken, a bond that rewrote history.